o'clock.
Oh, dude, we have to do Miss Lane's history project today.
Let's go.
We have to go to D.C.
Woo!
As you can see, we're at the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument was built to commemorate George Washington, the U.S.'s first president. It was built between the years of 1848 and 1884.
The Washington Monument was built as a tribute to Washington's military leadership during the American Revolution.
Washington's leadership in the American Revolution lasted from 1775 to 1783.
Aside from being a military leader during the American Revolution, Washington did many other things, like establishing the serving of 2 terms for presidents. After Washington's presidency, political parties were established. We are standing in front of the Capitol building. The Capitol building is where the House of Representatives and the Senate meet.
These 2 houses, or Congress, make up the legislative branch of the U.S. government.
The House's members are based on the population of each state, and each state has 2 representatives in the Senate.
This bicameral system was set up after the Great Compromise, or Connecticut Plan, in 1787. Alright, we're in front of the statue of Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant, or Unconditional Surrender Grant, was the 18th President of the United States between 1869 and 1877.
He was general of the Union Army during the Civil War.
Ironically, Grant wasn't Abraham Lincoln's first choice for the position of general. Robert E. Lee was.
Unfortunately, when Lee's home state of Virginia seceded and joined the Confederacy, he went with it. Me and Aneil are in front of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the judicial branch of the U.S. government.
It uses its power of judicial review, established after the court's ruling in the case of Marbury v. Madison, to determine whether laws are constitutional or not.
They have also been a part of sanctioned racism in the past. In cases such as Brown v. Board of Education, which established separate but equal, and Korematsu v. United States, which made internment camps in the U.S. legal. We're in D.C., and the World War II Memorial is right there. The World War II Memorial commemorates the men who died during World War II, in which the Allied powers, USA, USSR, and Great Britain, fought against the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan.
World War II would not have happened if the Treaty of Versailles didn't blame Germany for causing World War I, and if it didn't punish Germany so severely by making them pay war reparations, which put them into a massive debt.
Towards the end of World War II, Hitler saw that the Axis powers would be defeated shortly, so Hitler committed suicide, and the Allied powers were victorious.
After Hitler's death, the U.S. focused on Japan. After Japan refused to surrender countless times, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945.
After Japan still refused to surrender, the U.S. dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki 3 days later. The Allied powers were victorious.
As you can see, we're taking a break right now, eating some Bojangles and Taco Bell.
Good evening. Abraham Lincoln was the nation's 16th president. Lincoln was the president during the Civil War. On November 19, 1863, Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address and stated his famous quote, "407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, convinced in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Lincoln also wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which resulted in freeing of slaves. Lincoln was a very decisive leader. Lincoln stated, with malice towards none, charity of all, which showed that he had very lenient plan for Reconstruction. On April 14, 1865, the nation was shocked to hear that their beloved president has been assassinated by John Wilkes Booth.
Woo! We're at the FDR Memorial. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the 32nd President of the United States between 1933 and 1945, the only president to serve more than 2 terms in office.
His policies during the Great Depression helped stimulate the nation's economy.
During his first 100 days in office, FDR passed more bills than any other president in history, forming the New Deal.
FDR also passed the Lend-Lease Act, helping the Allies prior to the U.S. joining World War II.
After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, FDR said, "A date which will live in infamy."
FDR died before the end of World War II. Alright, we're at the Jefferson Memorial. Thomas Jefferson was the 3rd President of the United States, running with the Democratic Republican Party.
He bought the Louisiana Purchase from France in 1803 and wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Virginia Statute for religious freedom.
We're at the Holocaust Museum. During World War II, Hitler and many Nazis wanted total genocide of the Jews and many other kinds of people in order to fulfill their desire for an Aryan race.
Their final solution was to force these undesirable groups of people into concentration camps.
6 million people were killed before Allied soldiers liberated the survivors.
Hitler's desire for a master Aryan race was unsuccessful. Hitler later committed suicide. That was uncool. Hitler. The White House, Washington D.C. The White House is traditionally the home of the president.
During the War of 1812, the White House was burned down by the British.
In the White House, there are 132 rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 6 levels in the residence.
There are also 412 doors, 147 windows, 28 fireplaces, 8 staircases, and 3 elevators.
President John Adams was the first president to live in the White House.
Alright, we're at Lafayette Square. Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory, was the 7th President of the United States.
Jackson served as president from 1829 to 1837.
He was made famous by the Battle of New Orleans, where he defeated the British during the War of 1812.
Jackson was strongly against the National Bank, helped crush the nullification crisis, and strongly enforced the Indian Removal Act.
His term as president led to more people voting, and Jackson followed a system of Jacksonian democracy.
Me and Aneil are Franklin Square, Washington, D.C. Benjamin Franklin was a patriot during the early years of the USA and the American Revolution.
He was very influential and created the Join or Die political cartoon to help unite the colonies during the French and Indian War.
Franklin was also a scientist and helped discover electricity with his famous kite and key experiment.
Alright, we're at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American civil rights activist who tried to politically gain rights for African Americans.
He staged many boycotts and marched on Washington, D.C., where he recited the famous I Have a Dream speech.
King received the Nobel Prize at age 35.
On April 4th, 1968, King was assassinated by James Earl Ray in Memphis,